"I need you to fire me," I said, my voice barely steady as I stood in front of the massive oak desk. The man behind it, my new CEO, Adrian Cole, looked up from his laptop with those piercing gray eyes that had been haunting my dreams for the past 3 weeks. He didn't recognize me. Of course he didn't. The last time we'd seen each other, I'd been wearing a cheap suit at a bar, drunk off my ass, accepting his marriage proposal. That was 6 months ago, before he vanished without a trace. And now here he was, my boss, wearing $1,000 suit and looking at me like I was a complete stranger, asking him to destroy my career. My name is Nathan Rivera, and 3 weeks ago my life became a beautiful disaster. I should probably back up. 6 months ago I met someone at a company mixer I'd crashed with my best friend Marcus. I wasn't supposed to be there. It was for some tech startup's anniversary party, all venture capitalists and entrepreneurs in designer clothes drinking expensive wine. Marcus worked in their PR department and had convinced me to come along for moral support and free alcohol. "Just pretend you belong," Marcus had said, straightening my tie in the bathroom mirror. "Confidence is everything at these things." I'd rolled my eyes but played along, nursing a glass of wine I couldn't even pronounce, trying not to look as out of place as I felt. I was a graphic designer at a mid-tier advertising agency, comfortable but not particularly ambitious. These people spoke a different language: disruption, synergy, market penetration. Then I saw him across the room. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that fell just slightly over his forehead in a way that seemed effortlessly perfect. He wore a navy suit that fit him like it had been sculpted onto his body, and when he laughed at something his companions said, I felt it in my chest. He had this presence, not loud or demanding but magnetic. People gravitated toward him without seeming to realize they were doing it. "That's Adrian Cole," Marcus had whispered, following my gaze. "Just sold his second startup for something like 50 million. He's brilliant, ruthless, and completely unavailable. Don't even think about it." "I'm not thinking about anything," I'd lied, even as I watched Adrian move through the crowd with fluid grace. 3 glasses of wine later, I'd somehow ended up talking to him on the rooftop terrace. I still don't know how it happened. One moment I'd been standing alone looking at the city lights, and the next he was beside me, asking if I was enjoying the party. "Honestly," I'd said, the wine making me bold, "I crashed it. I don't belong here." Adrian had laughed, a real laugh, not the polite chuckle he'd been giving everyone else. "I don't belong here either. I hate these things." "Then why are you here?" "Because it's my party," he'd grinned at my horrified expression. "Don't worry, I prefer crashers to the usual crowd. They're more honest." We talked for hours. About art and design, about his frustration with the tech industry's obsession with growth over creativity, about my dream of starting my own design studio someday. He was brilliant and funny and surprisingly vulnerable when he talked about feeling like he was constantly performing for investors and board members. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" Adrian had asked, his eyes searching mine in the dim rooftop lighting. "Every single day," I'd admitted. When he'd kissed me at midnight, tasting like champagne and possibility, I'd thought maybe my real life was finally starting. We'd spent the next 3 months in a whirlwind. He'd take me to hole-in-the-wall restaurants between his important meetings. I'd drag him to art galleries in Brooklyn where he'd actually listen to my opinions about composition and color theory. He made me laugh until my sides hurt. I made him forget about market shares and quarterly reports. It was intense and fast and completely consuming. We didn't tell anyone. He said he valued his privacy, and I understood. The tech world was obsessed with his every move. Our relationship was ours alone, sacred and secret. 3 months in, drunk on wine and each other in his penthouse apartment, he'd proposed. Not with a ring, he'd said he wanted us to choose that together, but with words that had made my heart stop. "Marry me, Nathan. I don't want to live someone else's life anymore. I want to live ours." I'd said yes without hesitation. We'd made plans to tell our families, to have a small ceremony, to build something real. He'd promised me forever with those gray eyes blazing with certainty. Then he disappeared. The next morning, I'd woken up alone in his apartment. No note, no text, nothing. His phone went straight to voicemail. When I'd gone to his office, they'd told me he'd taken an indefinite leave of absence. When I'd asked his assistant where he'd gone, she'd looked at me with pity and said, "I'm sorry, I can't share that information." I'd waited a week, then 2, then a month. Marcus had finally convinced me to accept that Adrian had ghosted me, that whatever we'd had was just a fantasy, a rich guy's temporary escape from reality. "He's probably in the Maldives with some model," Marcus had said gently. Guys like that don't actually marry guys like us, Nathan, I'm sorry. I'd tried to move on. I'd thrown myself into work, picked up freelance projects, started actually saving money for that design studio I'd always talked about. I'd dated a few people, though nothing stuck. I'd convinced myself I was fine. Then 3 weeks ago, my agency had been acquired by Cole Innovations. The company memo had been straightforward. Adrian Cole, tech entrepreneur and former CEO of two successful startups, was consolidating several creative agencies under one umbrella to create an integrated marketing powerhouse. There would be restructuring, new management, opportunities for growth. I'd stared at his name on the email, my hands shaking. Adrian Cole, my Adrian, the man who'd promised me forever and then vanished like smoke. My first instinct had been to quit, but I needed this job, and besides, what were the chances he'd even remember me? He'd probably proposed to a dozen people in drunken moments of vulnerability. I was nobody, just a graphic designer he'd dated for 3 months half a year ago. I'd convinced myself it would be fine. Then came the company-wide meeting where Adrian introduced himself as our new CEO. He'd looked different, harder somehow, more polished. His hair was shorter, styled more severely. He wore a charcoal suit that screamed power and distance. When he spoke about his vision for the company, his voice was confident and cool, nothing like the warm intimacy I remembered. I'd hidden in the back of the conference room, my heart hammering. He hadn't looked at me once, hadn't even glanced in my direction. After the meeting, I'd told myself it was better this way. He'd moved on. I'd moved on. We could both pretend that drunken engagement had never happened. Except I couldn't stop thinking about him. He was everywhere, in the executive elevator, in the hallways, in the break room, getting coffee like a normal person instead of a billionaire who'd shattered my heart. And every time I saw him, something twisted painfully in my chest. The worst part, he was even more attractive than I remembered. The months had refined him somehow, turned him from magnetic to absolutely devastating. The way he moved through the office with quiet authority, the way he listened intently when people spoke, the slight furrow between his brows when he was concentrating, it all reminded me of why I'd fallen so hard so fast. And he still didn't recognize me. 2 weeks into his tenure, I'd been assigned to the creative team working on a major rebranding project. Which meant meetings. Which meant being in the same room as Adrian for hours at a time, watching him dissect marketing strategies and provide insight that was genuinely brilliant. I tried to stay invisible, to just do my work and avoid drawing attention, but in one meeting he directly addressed me. "Nathan Rivera, right? You did the Henderson campaign last year." His gray eyes had fixed on mine and I'd forgotten how to breathe. "That was exceptional work. What's your take on the direction we're proposing?" He'd said my name, looked right at me, and there had been absolutely no recognition in those eyes. I'd somehow managed to respond professionally, offering my perspective on the color palette and typography. He'd nodded thoughtfully, agreed with several of my points, and moved on. That night, I'd gone home and screamed into a pillow for 10 minutes straight. "He doesn't remember you," I'd told my reflection in the bathroom mirror. "Accept it and move on." But I couldn't, because even though Adrian clearly had no idea who I was falling for him all over again. Every meeting was torture, watching him be brilliant and charismatic, seeing glimpses of the man I'd loved beneath the CEO persona, knowing he'd forgotten I existed. Marcus had been blunt when I'd confessed over drinks. "You need to either tell him or get over him. This pinning from afar thing is pathetic." "I can't tell him. What am I supposed to say? Hi, remember when you proposed to me 6 months ago and then disappeared? No, well, this is awkward." "Actually, yeah, exactly that." Marcus had leveled me with his no-nonsense stare. "Nathan, you deserve answers, and he deserves to know that his employee is his ex-fiancé. This whole situation is a bomb waiting to go off." I'd known Marcus was right, but I'd been too much of a coward to do anything about it. Until this morning. I'd arrived at work to find an email from Adrian's assistant requesting I come to his office immediately. My stomach had dropped. This was it. He'd somehow found out and he was going to fire me to avoid the awkwardness. Which was why I'd walked into his office and immediately asked him to fire me. Adrian stared at me across his massive oak desk, his expression unreadable. You want me to fire you, he repeated slowly like he was testing the words. On what grounds? Conflict of interest, I said, my throat tight. Personal conflict of interest. Something flickered in his eyes, confusion, maybe curiosity. I'm not aware of any conflict, can you elaborate? This was my moment. I could tell him everything about the rooftop, the proposal, the 6 months I'd spent thinking about him, or I could make something up, walk away with my dignity intact and find a new job. I opened my mouth to lie. We were engaged, I heard myself say instead. 6 months ago, you proposed to me and then you disappeared. The silence that followed was crushing. Adrian's face went completely blank like I'd just told him I was from Mars. Excuse me, his voice was carefully controlled, but I could see his hands tighten on the edge of his desk. The rooftop party, your startup's anniversary. We talked for hours and you kissed me at midnight. We dated for 3 months. You proposed in your penthouse after too much wine. The words tumbled out faster now like a dam breaking. And then you vanished. No explanation, no goodbye, nothing. And now you're my boss and you don't even remember me and I can't do this. I can't work here pretending I don't know what your lips taste like or how you laugh at bad jokes or the way you. I cut myself off, horrified at what I just admitted. Adrian stood abruptly, his chair rolling back. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, his back to me. The tension in his shoulders was visible even through his perfectly tailored suit. I don't remember you, he said quietly. The words shouldn't have hurt. I'd already known he didn't recognize me, but hearing him say it out loud felt like a knife between my ribs. I know, I managed. That's why I'm asking you to fire me. I'll sign whatever NDA you want. I won't make trouble. I can't be here. Nathan, the way he said my name, soft, almost broken, made me look up. He was still facing the window, one hand pressed against the glass. I don't remember you because I don't remember anything from 6 months ago. What? I was in an accident. He turned to face me, and for the first time since I'd walked into his office, his professional mask had cracked. He looked tired, haunted. 6 months ago, I was in a car accident, traumatic brain injury. I was in a coma for 2 weeks, and when I woke up, I'd lost approximately 4 months of memories. Everything from early March to late June is just gone. The room tilted sideways. I gripped the back of the chair I'd been standing behind to steady myself. An accident, I repeated numbly. The doctor said the memories might come back or they might not. It's been 6 months and nothing's returned. Adrian's gray eyes held mine and I saw guilt there, pain. So when you say we were engaged, when you talk about rooftop conversations and proposals, I believe you, but I don't remember any of it. I don't remember you. Oh my God, I sat down heavily in the chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. I thought you ghosted me. I thought you just decided I wasn't worth it. I didn't decide anything. I had a car wrap around a telephone pole at 60 miles an hour. His voice was raw. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Nathan. If I'd known, if anyone had told me about you. No one knew, I interrupted. We kept it secret. You said you valued your privacy and I understood, so we didn't tell anyone, not my friends, not your colleagues, it was just ours. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, disturbing its perfect style. That explains why my assistant didn't have any record of you. I had her compile a list of everyone important in my life before the accident, trying to piece together what I'd lost. You weren't on it. Because I wasn't important enough, I said bitterly. Because you were too important, Adrian corrected sharply. If we were engaged, if we were keeping it secret, that means you mattered more than anyone else. That means I was protecting what we had. We stared at each other across his office, the weight of 6 months of misunderstanding crushing down on both of us. I don't know what to do with this information, Adrian finally said. I don't know how to reconcile the fact that apparently I proposed to someone I can't remember, that I loved you and lost you and don't have any memory of it. Join the club, I said hollowly. I spent 6 months thinking the man I loved had just decided I wasn't worth the effort, that I was some passing fancy, easily forgotten. You weren't forgotten, you were erased. He sat back down at his desk, suddenly looking every bit as exhausted as I felt, by my own brain, but still, Nathan, I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing, I said, surprised by the fierceness in my voice. You didn't choose this, you didn't ask to lose your memories. I'm the one who should apologize for assuming the worst of you. You had every reason to assume the worst. I disappeared without explanation. Because you were fighting for your life in a hospital, I countered, not because you didn't care. Silence settled over us again, but this time it felt different. Less hostile, more uncertain, like we were both trying to figure out where we stood. What do you want to do? Adrian asked quietly. Do you still want me to fire you? I thought about it, really thought about it. 20 minutes ago, I'd wanted to run away from this situation to escape the pain of being around someone who'd forgotten I existed. But now, knowing the truth, I don't know, I admitted, this is complicated. Incredibly complicated, Adrian agreed. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with an intensity that made my skin warm. Can I ask you something? Sure. What was I like before the accident with you? The question caught me off guard. You really want to know. I've spent 6 months trying to piece together who I was during those missing months. Everyone tells me I seemed happy, lighter somehow, but no one could tell me why. Maybe you can. I took a breath, letting myself remember. You were softer, less guarded. You laughed more real laughs, not the polite CEO chuckle. You got excited about weird things like the perfect foam on a cappuccino or finding a vintage design book at a used bookstore. You talked about wanting to step back from the corporate world, maybe teach or mentor young entrepreneurs instead of constantly chasing the next big thing. Adrian's expression was unreadable. That sounds nothing like me. It sounded nothing like the Adrian Cole everyone else knew, I corrected. But with me, you let yourself be someone different. You said you were tired of performing. And you let me be that person. I didn't let you be anything, you just were. I met his eyes. You were the man I fell in love with, and then you were gone. Adrian stood again, but this time he came around the desk, leaning against it so we were only a few feet apart. This close, I could see the faint scar along his left temple, probably from the accident. I wanted to reach out and trace it, to catalog all the ways he was different now. I don't remember loving you, Adrian said, his voice low. But Nathan, looking at you now, hearing you talk about who I was with you, I want to remember. God, I wish I could. You can't force memories to come back. I know, believe me, I've tried. He crossed his arms, a defensive gesture that made him seem younger, vulnerable, but maybe we could start over. My heart stuttered, start over. Get to know each other again, no expectations, no pressure to recreate what we had, just see if there's still something there. He looked at me with those devastating gray eyes. Would you be willing to try that? Everything in me wanted to say yes immediately, but the rational part of my brain, the part that had spent 6 months healing from heartbreak, urged caution. Adrian, you're my boss. This is already ethically complicated before we even factor in our history. You're right, he nodded immediately. I can have you transferred to a different department. You'd report to someone else and I'd recuse myself from any decisions regarding your employment or advancement. You'd do that. If it means getting to know you again, absolutely. He smiled, and it transformed his face, made him look less like the intimidating CEO and more like the man who'd kissed me on a rooftop. I lost 4 months of my life, Nathan. I lost memories I can never get back, but you're here standing in front of me, and maybe that's a second chance. Maybe this is life giving me an opportunity to not lose you twice. That's very optimistic for someone who doesn't remember being optimistic. Maybe you're bringing it out in me already. His smile widened. So what do you say, coffee, dinner, a conversation where we both know what we're walking into? I should have said no. This was messy and complicated, and there was no guarantee it would work. We were essentially strangers now, separated by 6 months and a traumatic injury. The man I'd loved might be gone forever, replaced by this harder, more controlled version. But when I looked at Adrian, really looked at him, I saw glimpses of recognition. The way he tilted his head when he was curious, the slight crinkle around his eyes when he smiled genuinely, the unconscious habit of running his hand through his hair when he was nervous. He was different, yes, but he was still Adrian. Dinner, I heard myself say, somewhere quiet where we can talk, and Adrian. Yes. No wine, we should probably stay sober for this. He laughed, a real laugh that echoed in his chest. Deal, tonight, or is that too soon? Tonight works. I stood up, suddenly needing space to process everything that had just happened. I should get back to work. People are going to wonder why I've been in the CEO's office for half an hour. Let them wonder, but Adrian moved to open the door for me, ever the gentleman. As I passed him, he caught my wrist gently. "Nathan, thank you for telling me, for giving me a chance to explain. Thank you for not thinking I was crazy," I said, "or a liar." "I could never think that." He released my wrist, but his eyes held mine. "Tonight, 7. 7, I confirmed and walked out of his office on shaking legs. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept circling back to the conversation in Adrian's office. He'd been in an accident, he'd lost his memories. All this time I'd spent angry and hurt. He'd been recovering from a traumatic injury, unaware that he'd left someone behind. Marcus called me during lunch, his voice urgent. "Okay, spill. The office gossip chain says you were in Adrian Cole's office for 40 minutes this morning and you looked like you'd seen a ghost when you left." "We're having dinner tonight," I said instead of explaining. Silence. "Then I'm sorry, what?" "It's a long story. Can you come over after work? I need to figure out what to wear and you're better at this than I am." "Nathan Rivera, you cannot drop that bomb and then hang up on me." "Watch me." I ended the call, smiling despite everything. By the time I got home, Marcus was already waiting outside my apartment building, looking both concerned and intensely curious. "Talk," he demanded the moment we were inside. "Everything now." I told him about the accident, the missing memories, Adrian's proposition to start over. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from shock to sympathy to cautious optimism. "So he literally cannot remember you," Marcus said when I finished. "That's actually heartbreaking." "For both of us," I agreed. "I lost him once. Now I have a chance to find him again, but it's not the same him. It's like dating a ghost who happens to have the same face." "Or," Marcus countered, pulling open my closet with determination, "it's like getting to fall in love with the same person twice. Different circumstances, different context, but maybe the same connection." "You're being uncharacteristically romantic." "I'm being realistic." He pulled out a dark blue shirt I'd forgotten I owned. "Nathan, you spent 6 months miserable because you thought Adrian had ghosted you. Now you know the truth. He didn't leave you by choice. That changes everything." "Does it?" "He's still a stranger to me now. A stranger who happens to be my boss and my ex-fiancé." "A stranger who wants to get to know you again," Marcus corrected, shoving the shirt at me. "Wear this with your black jeans. It brings out your eyes and you need all the advantages you can get." I changed while Marcus provided running commentary on my love life, my tendency towards self-sabotage, and my complete lack of game. It was comfortingly normal, and by the time he left, I felt marginally less terrified about the evening ahead. Adrian picked me up at 7 sharp, driving a sleek black car that probably cost more than my annual salary. He'd changed out of his CEO armor into dark jeans and a gray sweater that made his eyes look silver in the fading light. "You look good," he said as I slid into the passenger seat. "That color suits you." Marcus's choice. Apparently I can't be trusted to dress myself for important occasions. "Is this an important occasion?" Adrian asked as he pulled into traffic. "Isn't it? You're essentially meeting your ex-fiancé for the first time." "When you put it like that, it sounds insane." But he was smiling. "I'm choosing to think of it as a first date with someone I'm already predisposed to like." "Because we were engaged." "Because you walked into my office this morning and asked me to fire you rather than continue working in an uncomfortable situation. That takes guts and honesty. I appreciate both." He took me to a small Italian place in Brooklyn, the kind of restaurant that probably required reservations months in advance. But the hostess greeted Adrian by name and led us to a private corner table without question. "Perks of being a billionaire tech CEO?" I asked as we sat down. "Perks of being a regular customer," Adrian corrected. "I've been coming here since before I sold my first company. They knew me when I was nobody." "You were never nobody." "You'd be surprised." He opened his menu, but his eyes stayed on me. "So where do we start? I feel like there's an etiquette for this situation, but I don't know what it is." "I don't think there is an etiquette for dinner with your amnesiac ex-fiancé," I said. "Maybe we just talk, get to know each other." "What do you want to know?" "Everything," I thought. I wanted to know if he still took his coffee black with 1 sugar, if he still had nightmares about disappointing his father, if he still traced absent patterns on my skin when he thought I was sleeping. Tell me about the accident, I said instead, if you're comfortable. Adrian set down his menu. I was driving home from a meeting, late, tired, not paying enough attention. A car ran a red light and hit me broadside. I don't remember the impact, don't remember the ambulance or the hospital. I woke up 2 weeks later with a splitting headache and no memory of the previous 4 months. That must have been terrifying. It was disorienting more than anything. Everyone kept telling me about things I'd done, people I'd met, decisions I'd made. I had to relearn my own life from other people's perspectives. He paused as the waiter brought water and took our orders. The doctors said I was lucky, the brain injury could have been much worse, but losing those memories, it felt like losing a part of myself I could never get back. And nothing has come back, no flashes, no dreams. Sometimes I'll smell something or hear a song and feel like I should remember something important, but it's like trying to grab smoke. The moment I focus on it, it disappears. His eyes met mine across the table. What were we like together, really? I took a sip of water, buying time to figure out how to answer. We were intense. We spent every free moment together like we couldn't stand to be apart. You'd show up at my apartment at midnight with takeout because you'd been thinking about me. I'd send you terrible memes during your important meetings just to make you laugh. That sounds exhausting. It was, I admitted, but in the best way, like we were both so hungry for connection that we couldn't help but consume each other. And I proposed after 3 months. You did, I thought it was too fast, but you were so certain, you said when you know. You know, I smiled at the memory even though it hurt. You were very persuasive. I'm sorry, Adrian said quietly. I'm sorry you went through 6 months thinking I'd abandoned you. You didn't know, you couldn't have known. Still, it's not fair to you. Life's not fair, I said with a shrug, but we're here now, that counts for something. Our food arrived and the conversation shifted to safer topics. My work, his plans for the company, the neighborhood gentrification we both had opinions about. It was easy, comfortable in a way I hadn't expected. Adrian was different from the man I'd known before, more measured, more careful with his words, but the core of him felt familiar. Over dessert, tiramisu we shared because Adrian insisted he couldn't finish a whole serving. I asked the question that had been bothering me all day. Do you want to remember, or would you rather just move forward? Adrian set down his fork, considering. Both, neither, I don't know. Part of me desperately wants those memories back, wants to remember falling in love with you, proposing, all of it. But another part of me thinks maybe it's better this way, like we get a fresh start without the weight of expectations. That's very philosophical. I've had a lot of therapy, he said dryly. Trauma-induced amnesia comes with mandatory counseling. Has it helped? It's taught me that I can't force anything. The memories will come back or they won't. All I can control is how I move forward. He reached across the table, his hand hovering near mine. Is this okay? I looked at his hand, long fingers, neat nails, a small scar across his knuckles I didn't remember from before. Slowly, I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and steady. This is okay, I confirmed, even though my heart was racing. Good, he didn't let go, because Nathan, I need you to understand something. I don't remember you, but sitting here with you tonight, it feels right, like my body remembers even if my brain doesn't. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, I managed, acutely aware of his thumb tracing small circles on the back of my hand. So can we do this again, tomorrow, the day after, until my calendar is just full of dinners with you? That seems excessive. I'm an excessive person, apparently, he smiled, at least according to my therapist's notes from before the accident. I laughed despite myself. Okay, more dinners, but Adrian. Yes. We need to take this slow. I know we were engaged before, but we're basically strangers now. I don't want to rush into something because of what we used to be. Agreed, he squeezed my hand gently. Slow, I can do slow. Except neither of us was particularly good at slow. Over the next 3 weeks, I saw Adrian almost every day. True to his word, he had me transferred to a different department, reporting to Jennifer Chen instead of directly to him. It removed the immediate ethical complication, though office gossip still swirled about why the CEO was having lunch with a mid-level designer 3 times a week. You know, people are talking, right? Marcus said one afternoon, cornering me in the break room. The rumor mill is convinced you're either sleeping with him or blackmailing him, possibly both. Let them talk, I said, surprised by how little I cared. They'll find something else to gossip about eventually. You're glowing, Marcus observed. It's disgusting, I'm happy for you, but it's disgusting. He wasn't wrong, I was glowing. Being around Adrian was like coming alive again after months of just existing. Every conversation revealed new facets of him: his dry sense of humor, his unexpected passion for architecture, his tendency to get lost in thought while staring at design mock-ups. He was both familiar and completely new, and I was falling for him all over again. We kept things deliberately casual: coffee dates before work, lunch in the park when weather permitted, dinners at quiet restaurants where we could talk for hours. He asked me endless questions about my life, my family, my dreams. I asked him about his recovery, his company, what it felt like to lose months of his life. It's like reading a book with chapters missing, Adrian told me one evening as we walked along the waterfront. I know the beginning and I know where I am now, but there's this gap in the middle that I can only fill in from other people's accounts. And even then, it doesn't feel real because I didn't experience it. Do you feel like a different person than you were before? I don't know, how can I compare when I don't remember who I was? He stopped walking, turning to face me. The sunset painted him in shades of gold and amber. But being with you, it feels like maybe I'm becoming who I was meant to be. Does that sound ridiculous? No, I said honestly, it sounds perfect. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of darker gray in his irises. Can I kiss you? My breath caught. We'd been dancing around this moment for weeks, almost touches, lingering glances, the weight of unspoken wanting. But we'd both been holding back, trying to honor the promise to take things slow. Yes, I breathed. Adrian's hand came up to cup my jaw, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. Then he leaned in, pressing his lips to mine in a kiss that was soft and searching, like he was trying to remember something just out of reach. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Nothing, he whispered, and I could hear the frustration in his voice. I thought maybe kissing you would trigger something, but it's still blank. Hey, I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. That's okay, this doesn't have to be about recovering memories, it can just be about this, you and me, right now. You're being very understanding about all of this. I'm being realistic, I corrected. Adrian, I've had 6 months to process losing you, to grieve and get angry and eventually accept it. You've had 3 weeks to process the fact that you had a whole relationship you don't remember. We're on different timelines and that's okay. I don't deserve you, he said quietly. Probably not, I agreed with a smile, but you're stuck with me anyway. He kissed me again, deeper this time, and I let myself sink into it. Whatever we'd had before, this was different, slower, more intentional, built on honesty instead of intensity. Maybe it was better this way. A month into our rekindled relationship, things at work got complicated. Adrian's acquisition of the agency had resulted in some major restructuring. Several people had been let go, departments merged, responsibilities shuffled. It was standard for this kind of merger, but it created tension and resentment among the remaining staff. And because I was known to be close to Adrian, I became a target. Must be nice, someone muttered in a meeting when I suggested a new creative direction. Having the CEO's ear whenever you want it. I ignored it, but the comments persisted. Snide remarks about favoritism, suggestions that my ideas only got approved because of my relationship with Adrian, pointed questions about how exactly I'd managed to avoid the layoffs. Marcus was furious on my behalf. You're the best designer we have, your work speaks for itself, these people are just jealous. They're not entirely wrong though, I said tiredly. We were having drinks after work and I was on my second Manhattan. I do have access to Adrian that other people don't, and even though he's not directly involved in decisions about my work anymore, people assume he is. So what, you're just going to let them drag you? I'm going to keep my head down and do excellent work, that's all I can control. Except the situation got worse before it got better. Someone leaked to a tech gossip blog that Adrian Cole, notoriously private CEO, was dating an employee at one of his acquired companies. The blog didn't name me specifically, but it was only a matter of time before someone connected the dots. Adrian called me into his office, now a routine that didn't send my heart into panic mode, and closed the door. We need to talk about the blog post, he said without preamble. I saw it, I said, slumping into the chair across from his desk. This is what I was afraid of. I can release a statement, confirm the relationship, make it clear that there's no professional favoritism, explain that you're not in my reporting chain. That'll just make it worse, it'll confirm I'm the person they're gossiping about. Nathan, I'm not going to let people drag your reputation through the mud because you're dating me. I can handle it, I insisted. I've dealt with worse. This isn't your battle to fight alone. Adrian came around the desk, leaning against it so we were eye level. We're in this together, remember? That means I defend you when people attack you because of me. Your white knight complex is showing, I said, but I was smiling. Is it working? A little, I sobered. Adrian, I knew what I was signing up for when I agreed to try this again. You're a public figure. There are going to be rumors and gossip and people who think I'm with you for your money or your influence. Are you? He asked, but there was no accusation in his voice, just curiosity. If I wanted money or influence, I would have leaked our engagement to the press 6 months ago when you disappeared. I could have done the scorned lover routine, sold my story, cashed in on sympathy. I met his eyes. I'm here because I care about you, the man you are now, not the position you hold or the zeros in your bank account. Adrian pulled me up from the chair and into his arms. I know, I'm sorry, this is bringing out my protective instincts. Your protective instincts are sweet but unnecessary. I rested my head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I can fight my own battles. Can we at least fight them together? Together works, I conceded. The blog post died down after a few days, replaced by some other scandal involving a cryptocurrency founder and an alleged Ponzi scheme. My coworkers gradually stopped making comments, either because they got bored or because they realized I wasn't getting any special treatment. But the experience had shaken me. Being with Adrian meant living under scrutiny, dealing with assumptions and gossip. Before the accident, we'd avoided all of this by keeping our relationship secret. Now, with his amnesia forcing us to build something new, we had to navigate the public aspect of being together. Are you having second thoughts? Adrian asked one night over dinner at his apartment. He'd cooked an impressive pasta carbonara that would have made an Italian grandmother proud, and we were eating on his couch while some documentary about architecture played in the background. About what? About us, this, he gestured between us with his fork. It's complicated, Nathan, the office politics, the gossip, the fact that I can't remember our first time around. I'd understand if you wanted to walk away. Do you want me to walk away? God, no, the vehemence in his voice was gratifying, but I want you to be happy, and if being with me makes you unhappy. It doesn't, I interrupted. It's complicated, yes, but Adrian, I spent 6 months thinking I'd never see you again. Complicated is better than alone. He set down his plate and pulled me closer, kissing the top of my head. You're sure? I'm sure. I tilted my face up to kiss him properly. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't work yourself to death, might as well be me. I do not work myself to death. You answered emails at 2 a.m. last night, I saw the timestamps. That was one time. It was the third time this week. Adrian laughed, conceding defeat. Okay, fine, I might have some work-life balance issues. Might is generous, I kissed him again. Good thing I'm here to nag you about it. Is that your official role in this relationship, professional nag? Among other things, I said, and then demonstrated several of those other things until the pasta was cold and the documentary was long over. 3 months into our renewed relationship, Adrian asked me to move in with him. We were at his apartment as usual. My place was significantly less luxurious and he had better coffee, and I was sprawled across his couch reading while he worked on his laptop. Move in with me, he said suddenly, looking up from his screen. I blinked. What? Move in with me here, he gestured around the apartment. You're here almost every night anyway. Half your clothes are already in my closet. It makes sense. Adrian, we've been dating for 3 months. We were engaged after 3 months the first time, he pointed out. And look how that turned out. He winced. Fair point, but Nathan, this isn't about rushing, it's about practicality. You hate your apartment, I have plenty of space. We're both adults who spend most of our free time together anyway. Why maintain two residences? Because it's the sensible thing to do, because moving in together is a big step, because your apartment probably costs more per month than I make in a year and I can't afford to split that. I don't want you to split it, I want you to live here because I want you here, every morning, every night, all the in-between moments. He closed his laptop and moved to the couch, sitting beside me. I know I don't remember our first attempt at this, but Nathan, I know what I feel now, and what I feel is that I want to build a life with you, a real one, not just dinner dates and sleepovers. You're being very intense about this. Apparently I'm an intense person, he said with a slight smile. Look, if you're not ready, that's okay, I can wait, but I wanted you to know that I'm ready, whenever you are. I thought about it, really thought about it. My apartment was cramped and expensive and I'd never really decorated it because it had always felt temporary, a placeholder until I figured out where I actually wanted to be. But Adrian's apartment felt like home. Not because it was luxurious, though it was, but because Adrian was there. Because we'd cooked dinners together in his kitchen and argued about movie choices on his couch, and I'd woken up in his bed more mornings than I'd woken up in my own. Okay, I said. Okay, you'll think about it, or okay, you'll move in. Okay, I'll move in, I laughed at his shocked expression. What, you just made a very compelling argument and I'm apparently susceptible to intensity. Adrian kissed me thoroughly enough that I forgot what we'd been talking about. When he finally pulled away, he was grinning. When? Give me 2 weeks to pack and end my lease. I'll hire movers. I can pack my own boxes, Adrian. I know you can, but you shouldn't have to. He kissed me again, softer this time. Let me do this for you, please. And because I was learning to let him take care of me, I agreed. Moving in together was both exactly what I'd expected and nothing like it. Adrian was particular about his space in ways I hadn't anticipated. Specific places for specific items, routines that couldn't be disrupted, a cleaning service that came every Wednesday without fail. But he was also surprisingly flexible, making room in his closet without complaint, letting me rearrange the kitchen so I could actually find things, agreeing to at least 3 pieces of unnecessary decorative items, his words, that made the apartment feel more lived in. I can't believe you've been living like this, I said one evening, looking around the now warmer space. I'd added throw pillows, actual art on the walls, plants that I'd promised to keep alive. It looked like a hotel room before. It was functional, Adrian protested. It was depressing. I moved into his arms, resting my head on his shoulder, but it's home now. Yeah, he agreed softly, it is. Living together revealed new dimensions to both of us. I learned that Adrian was grumpy before coffee, that he talked to himself when he was working through a problem, that he had nightmares sometimes about the accident, dreams where he was falling and couldn't remember how to stop. He learned that I was obnoxiously cheerful in the mornings, that I couldn't function without music while I worked, that I had a tendency to take on too much and then stress myself into insomnia. We fought about stupid things, dishes in the sink, who used the last of the milk, whether we needed to RSVP to his colleague's wedding. But we also learned how to fight fair, how to apologize, how to remember that we were on the same team. 4 months after I moved in, I came home to find Adrian sitting on the couch with a photo album in his lap. Hey, I said, dropping my bag by the door, what's that? I was going through some boxes from storage, Adrian said, not looking up. My assistant had them delivered, things from before the accident that I'd never gone through. I sat beside him, peering at the album. The photos were from before I knew him, Adrian at various tech conferences, Adrian with people I didn't recognize, Adrian looking younger and less polished. This is strange, he murmured, looking at myself and not remembering any of it. Do you want to talk about it? I found something. He flipped to the back of the album where there was a small pocket. From it, he pulled a photograph that made my breath catch. It was us, on a rooftop, the city lights blurred behind us. I was laughing at something off camera and Adrian was looking at me with an expression of such open adoration it hurt to see. We look happy, Adrian said quietly. We were. I took the photo with shaking hands, studying every detail. I remembered this night. It was from our 2nd month together before the proposal. We'd been happy, so happy. I wish I remembered this. Adrian's voice was thick with frustration. I wish I could remember what I was thinking looking at you like that. You were probably thinking about how charming I am, I said, trying to lighten the mood. Nathan, he took the photo back, setting it carefully on the coffee table. I need to tell you something and I need you to not freak out. My stomach dropped. That's never a good opening. I think I'm falling in love with you. The words came out in a rush. I know we agreed to take things slow, and I know I don't remember the first time I fell for you, but this, what we have now, it's real. It's the most real thing in my life, and I needed you to know that. I stared at him, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Say something, Adrian urged when I didn't respond, please. I love you too, I managed. I never stopped even when I thought you were gone. And these past few months falling for you again, it's been the most terrifying, wonderful experience of my life. Terrifying. Because I know what it's like to lose you, I said honestly, and the thought of going through that again. You won't, Adrian interrupted fiercely. He took my face in his hands, forcing me to meet his eyes. Nathan, I can't promise I won't have more accidents or that life won't throw us curveballs, but I can promise that I will never leave you by choice. Not again, not ever. You didn't leave me by choice the first time either. I know, but this time I'm making an active choice to stay, to build this life with you, to love you every single day with or without memories of how we started. I kissed him then, pouring every ounce of love and fear and hope into it. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. I love you, I said again because it felt important to keep saying it. This version of you, the one sitting here with me now, not because of who you used to be but because of who you are. Even though I'm neurotic about dishware placement and I work too much and I have nightmares. Especially because of those things, I confirmed. You're not perfect, Adrian, neither am I, but we're perfect for each other. He pulled me into his arms, holding me like I was something precious. We sat like that for a long time, the photograph of our past selves watching over us from the coffee table. 6 months after I'd moved in, Adrian proposed. Not dramatically, that wasn't his style anymore. We were in the kitchen, cooking dinner together on a random Thursday. I was chopping vegetables while he stirred sauce, and we were arguing about whether Italian seasoning counted as a real spice blend or just lazy cooking. It's an efficient spice blend, Adrian was saying. Why use 5 different jars when you can use one? Because cooking is about intention, not efficiency, I countered. You don't take shortcuts with. I stopped mid-sentence because Adrian had dropped to one knee. What are you doing? I asked, my knife hovering over a bell pepper. Apparently proposing, Adrian said, pulling a small box from his pocket. This wasn't how I planned it. I had this whole elaborate thing at a restaurant planned for next week, but you're standing there arguing with me about spices and you have a smudge of flour on your cheek and I can't wait another week. Adrian, let me finish. He opened the box, revealing a simple silver band that matched the one I'd apparently helped him pick out before his accident. Nathan Rivera, I don't remember falling in love with you the first time. I don't remember proposing on a rooftop or making promises I couldn't keep. But I remember every moment of the last 6 months. I remember learning how you take your coffee and that you hum when you're concentrating. I remember the first time you laughed at one of my terrible jokes and how it felt like winning the lottery. I remember deciding I wanted to spend the rest of my life making you laugh like that. Tears were streaming down my face, but I didn't move to wipe them away. I know we've done this before, Adrian continued. And I know it ended badly, not by either of our choices, but Nathan, I want to try again, properly this time, with witnesses and a ceremony and a future we build together. Will you marry me, again? I set down the knife before I dropped it. You're proposing to me while I'm cooking. I'm proposing to you while we're cooking, there's a difference. This is ridiculous. Is that a no? It's a yes, you absolute disaster of a human being. I pulled him up and kissed him hard. Yes, I'll marry you, again, properly this time. Adrian's laugh was pure joy as he slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly like it had been made for me, which I supposed it had been. I love you, he said against my lips. I love you too. I pulled back enough to study the ring. When did you even get this? 3 months ago. I've been carrying it around waiting for the right moment, and apparently my brain decided the right moment was during a spice debate. Your brain has excellent timing, I said, kissing him again. The sauce burned while we celebrated and we ended up ordering pizza. But sitting on the floor of our kitchen, eating mediocre pizza and planning our wedding felt more romantic than any five-star restaurant could have been. We got married 4 months later, in a small ceremony at the Botanical Gardens. Marcus stood beside me as my best man, pretending not to cry while making inappropriate jokes about my tendency toward dramatic life choices. Adrian's sister, whom I'd finally met and who'd given me an extremely thorough shovel talk, stood beside him. Our vows were simple. Nathan, Adrian said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, I lost you once to circumstances beyond my control. I'm choosing you now with full knowledge of what that means. You're my best friend, my partner, my home. I promise to choose you every day in every moment for the rest of our lives. Adrian, I said, I fell in love with you twice, once with a man I thought I'd lost forever and again with the man standing in front of me. You're both and neither of those people, and I love every version of you. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your biggest supporter. I promise to argue with you about spices and remember that we're on the same team. I promise to love you with or without memories with every breath I take. When we kissed, it felt like a beginning and an ending all at once. The end of uncertainty, the beginning of something permanent and real. At the reception, Marcus cornered me while Adrian was talking to his business partner. You did it, Marcus said, handing me a glass of champagne. You actually married your amnesiac billionaire boss. When you put it like that, it sounds like a bad romance novel. It kind of is, Marcus agreed, but I've never seen you happier, so I guess it's a good bad romance novel. The best kind, I said, watching Adrian across the room. He caught my eye and smiled, and I felt it all the way to my toes. Later, during the first dance, Adrian held me close and whispered, I wish I remembered the first time I fell in love with you. We have the rest of our lives to make new memories, I said. That's not the same. Maybe it's better, I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Those first memories, they were beautiful, but they were also incomplete. We were both holding parts of ourselves back, keeping secrets. This time we're going into it with everything on the table, full honesty, full commitment. You always know exactly what to say, Adrian murmured. It's one of my many talents, I kissed him softly, along with tolerating your spice-related opinions. Italian seasoning is a valid choice. It absolutely is not, and I'm not having this argument at our wedding. When then? Tomorrow, and every day after that for the next 50 years. Adrian laughed, pulling me closer as we swayed to the music. I love you, Nathan Rivera Cole. I love you too, I said. And I meant it with every fiber of my being. Loved this man who'd forgotten me and found me again, loved the life we'd built from the rubble of memory loss and misunderstanding, loved the future stretching out before us full of possibility. We'd lost months to amnesia and circumstance, but we'd found something better in the rebuilding, a love built on choice, on honesty, on showing up for each other even when it was hard. And that was worth every moment of confusion and heartbreak that had led us here. 2 years later, I woke up to Adrian kissing my shoulder, the morning light streaming through our bedroom windows. Good morning, he murmured. Morning, I mumbled, still half asleep. What time is it? 6:30. I wanted to wake you before I left for my run. You're a monster, I said without heat, but I turned to kiss him properly. A monster you married. Twice apparently. What does that say about me? That you have excellent taste and questionable judgment. He kissed me again, then pulled away. I'll be back in an hour. Want me to grab coffee on the way? You know you don't have to ask. I like asking anyway. He stood, already dressed in running gear. At the door he paused. Nathan. Yes. I remembered something, last night in my dream. I sat up fully, suddenly wide awake. What did you remember? The rooftop, the night we met. Adrian's expression was soft, wondering. I remembered asking if you were enjoying the party and you said you'd crashed it. I remembered thinking you were the most interesting person I'd met in years. Adrian, my voice caught. It's not much, just fragments, but they're real, they're mine again, he smiled. I wanted you to know. After he left for his run, I lay back in bed, staring at the ceiling with tears streaming down my face. Not sad tears, grateful ones. Whether Adrian regained all his memories or none of them, it didn't matter. We'd built something real, something lasting, something that didn't need the past to validate it. But knowing that small pieces of our first beginning were coming back, that felt like a gift. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Brunch on Sunday, I have gossip." I smiled, texting back, "Absolutely, bring wine." Life had become beautifully ordinary: work projects and weekend plans, arguments about whose turn it was to do laundry and what to watch on Netflix. Adrian still worked too much and I still nagged him about it. I still made terrible jokes and he still laughed at them even when they were objectively awful. We'd survived memory loss and office gossip, proposals and wedding planning, the slow work of building a life together from scratch. And every morning I woke up next to the man I'd loved, lost, and loved again, different from before but fundamentally, beautifully the same. That afternoon, when Adrian got back from his run, he found me in our home office working on designs for a new campaign. "You're in a good mood," he observed, setting down coffee on my desk. "I married the love of my life twice. I'm allowed to be in a good mood." "Fair point," he kissed the top of my head. "I'm going to shower, want to grab lunch after?" "Always." He started to leave, then turned back. "Nathan." "Yes." "Thank you for not giving up on me, on us, even when I couldn't remember why you should." "You would have done the same for me," I said simply. "In a heartbeat," Adrian agreed. And I believed him because love, real love, wasn't about perfect memories or dramatic gestures. It was about showing up day after day, choosing each other even when it was hard. We'd done that, we were still doing it, and we'd keep doing it for the rest of our lives. That was our story, messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. And I wouldn't change a single moment of it.